So we're running a little bit late on Gryffindor. We're like, well, let's date this. Now it's Thanksgiving, and we're about a week and a half into Ravenclaw. And I'm Ravenclaw, at least the Hesed component's gonna be like 2 weeks. So it's like 1 week of class and the next week of Dragon Egg, and that's it. Like it's just gonna be that, at least from my perspective. But because it's gonna be like 5 months long, it's like something else. The funny thing about this is the download I got yesterday. The funny thing about Ravenclaw sits at Hesed. It's just the fucking claw. So the raven sits at the top of the tree, but the claw sits at Hesed. Sorry. Spirit and my spirit guides make me laugh so much, and I have just nobody to share it with. So let's move forward. So for me, the Ravenclaw is the crown. Or the Raven she's the, like in Game of Thrones, it ends up Bran, this Slytherin Raven. But like the reality is it's Rowena Ravenclaw is like the queen. She's the high priestess of the Silver Star. She's the third eye queen. Therefore, she's the alpha, And then she has so much Christ energy because you can't have that much, like, that high, innocent, benevolent Hesed and the higher third eye without being like. So it's very Cinderella-esque in the energy flow. So this is like, you can't be a money-grubbing troll. That's a low bar, a money-grubbing troll. You can't be behaving less than like Kuan Yin in real life. You can swear, whatever. Like, it's not great, but like your actions must either be witty or classy. But it should be both. It should be, right? But at the end of the day, it's more about the heart of the matter than the form. But you still know and understand high form, high intellect. And this is where Daenerys was actually quite great, because she had the composure, the mental discipline, the emotional discipline. Just nobody ever heard her speak or think. So you guys all like... Anyway, just because somebody doesn't say or elucidate things doesn't make them bad. Especially when you know that they have dragons to support them. The dragons, the keepers of wisdom. Attack by stratagem. Visualize your angle. All right, let's go number 3. So the dragons would never have voted for Bran, They didn't go, hey, Bran is the third eye goddess, keeper of wisdom. Or justice. He really, he's okay, but he wasn't great. In fact, he caused a lot of drama in all of his, snaky behaviors. So, I like to say, if Drogon wouldn't come to Bran and be like, be my daddy, and Bran would have to force himself onto Drogon by warging on him, then it kind of begs the question, how good is Bran? Because Drogon, like, the dragons are like God's creatures. Anyway. Sun Tzu said, in the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. Now you'll see this in V for Vendetta, where they say the best way to have taken over a country is with like a virus. So that all the resources and all the wealth, like a chemical mutation virus, to like kill everyone. That's probably the most effective and most straightforward and healthiest ways to take over a country. So this is really good when you have the like Navy SEALs, the assassins, or like special ops forces, and you go, we're gonna take out those 3 people that are the really big troublemakers and then undermine it. But really, like, if you're gonna take over a country or a company or so there are a few things here. First, you need to like go, what is your goal? Is your goal to create shatter destruction? To like level and steamroll everything? That is an effective form, especially if it's a self-defense against really bad people. I just want to take them out, right? Then you have to think of long-term consequences. And the consciousness which allowed for all of those people to exist to begin with. Okay. So then the next question is, when you're going to take over, is it to shatter and destroy and pillage the place, or is it to acquire the wealth? Why are they enemies? And what kind of enemy are they? So it's really good to have a clear vision. So too, it is better to recapture an entire army than to destroy it. To capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy them. So let's say if I need slave labor, it is better to capture my prey and then use them as slave labor than to capture my prey, slaughter them, and then to continue using my current slaves. Like that. So you need to acquire. Hence, to fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Now, I want to say it like this. You've heard the term, if you can't beat them, join them. Well, when we're in Gebra, like, beat them. Like, if you're in Gryffindor, you're the good guy, you know? 90% of the time, okay? If you're in Gryffindor and your opponents are like selfish narcissists, like, your goal is to bring them in onto your side. And if you can do that with a phrase or an inspiring movement or an action, then that's a better state of war than conquering and destroying them. To create and facilitate love to be reflected back at you is better than creating nothing. So if you can win the hearts and minds of people, then yeah, like, that should be the goal. So your art, your stratagem is like, how do I win the hearts and minds? That's like ultimate warfare. Man. All right, so here's our graphic. It goes spoils, destruction. So the more destruction we create, the less of the gain we receive. So if we can, unless it's beneficial assassin level destruction, and even then it's not great, you know? You always wonder, you're like, what if Beatrice Kiddo could forgive Bill? Like, and then they could have lived happily ever, like a happy family. And you're like, you understand. You're like, self-fucking respect, dude. But what if? And then like, which one's better? Which one's healthier? Because you know she's never going to trust him. So it's just like, man. So at that level, maybe the destruction is better, just to like, so she doesn't always have to watch her back for her narcissistic psychopath lover is gonna stab her again, you know? Shoot her in the head. All right. Thus, the highest form of generalship is to bulk the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to besiege walled cities. That sounds very Joan of Arc. That might have been why she ended up being burnt at the stake. So, but I know it was like self-defense stuff. All right, so, all right. The highest form of generalship is to bulk the enemy's plans. So it's like to foil people. So like this is gonna go in the Yoda balls, is like foiling everyone. Like, you're gonna, if you can fuck up every, like, and this is the Ravenclaw. This is Elaine, Ravenclaw. Yeah. Fuck everybody's plans. At all costs. So if you can do that, just that would be like, you can undermine everyone's goals and ambitions with like one swoop or one post. Man, does that change things. The next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. So this is like divide and conquer, but better, like prevent the armies to come together. So like always be creating wedges in between those different army factions. Always. So this is like if Russia can come in and like influence our votes, like it's that. If other countries can come in and go, the army versus the navy, you guys should hate each other, like that. Like the Democrats and the Republicans of the United States should go at war with each other. That, so like the United States is literally built on the worst foundation for it's martial poverty. They're too at war with each other to ever move forward, and then some other country is gonna go, boom, done. And it's all it's gonna be. It's probably gonna be a fucking dictator country. The next, like, man, if you even had like good teachers in the South and good teachers in like the rural areas of America, if you even had like any level of education teachers teaching this stuff, people might not be so fucking stupid. And then like the United States pride would just be like, well, we need to like uplift each other and become a solid, healthy state to ever really be taken seriously. So, the next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. I would say it's better to do reconnaissance and gain intelligence of the army and the field instead of ever fucking attacking it. And then use it in the first two. Like, try never to hit the field. The worst of all policy is to besiege walled cities. Oh my god, yeah. So if you can attack the enemy's water, friends, family, the conversation going on around them, if you can influence anything via an indirect source. So understand what your enemy consumes. Be it praise, money, jobs, conversation, food, water, clothes, anything, right? And influence it. You should never have to you should never have to besiege a walled city. You should always be able to starve them out. Or humiliate them out at all costs. Period. The rule is not to besiege walled cities if it can possibly be avoided. It's just trying never to have to do that. So I just watched an episode of The Crown, and it was with this poor man in the recession age that had jumped over the fence at Buckingham Palace and broke into the Queen's quarters to have a conversation with her. Man, you know, everything is like, that's desperate. That's someone on their last, that like, they're like, I'm ready to die. Like at zero level of intelligence, hope, access, anything. So like if you're hitting, like besieging a walled city, and he did it alone, you know, just to have a conversation with the Queen about the state of poverty and unemployment of the country. Now you know the level of abuse of power that is happening. If a man on his last lifeline goes, breaks into Buckingham Palace to besiege the Queen and ask for help, it's pretty gross. That's a criminal state. The preparation of mantlets, movable shelters, and various implements of war will take up 3 whole months, and piling up of mounds over against the walls will take 3 months more. So it's like, basically they're saying, if you don't have 6 months of fucking preparation up front to besiege a walled city or a walled person, don't do it. Like that, it should be like everything thought out. An entire stratagem. And I think this is kind of how the FBI works when even hunting down people. They spend 6 months just building up a case just to arrest somebody so that the case is like clean, concise. All right? So like, if you don't have the resources, evidence, proof. So for me, I spent 10 years. I didn't even spend 6 months, right? So like before I'd even besiege anything, like I spent 10 years doing reconnaissance and research. It's pretty clear. I may seem reckless, but all right, here are the graphics. Undermine, overtake, and then here it says bullying and sanctions. So all acts of war are considered bullying or creating rules. Boundary, rule, boundary, okay? Do you get how it's bullying even if you're the right? Even if you're the one in the right? It's like telling a fat person they need to eat vegetables, and you're like, like, if feels like bullying to them. Like you feel like the devil, right? But you're the good guy. And that's where it's like mom. Every mom knows this. Okay, so on every single chance I have, I will be doing reconnaissance and R&D so that I can undermine my enemy at all costs. If I can swoop the ground underneath somebody, I will. If they have no ground to stand on, they cannot and will not stand their ground. They'll blow over like like nothing, you know? It's really easy to overtake somebody who has no consciousness about Earth. Remember, that was one of the key factors, one of the key 5 factors that you need to always be taking into account is the consciousness of Earth, the karma surrounding Earth, your enemy's karma surrounding Earth, your karma surrounding Earth, your relationship with the state of the planet, all of these things, okay? Like, if you can take all of that into account, your success module is much easier. And if your enemy just sits on his ass and doesn't really do like well thought out research on both the light side and the dark side, then they don't have any ground. So just remember, like, so this is like where the FBI goes into play. Like, you have to think like a criminal to catch a criminal, but you also have to think like a cop. This is where the angel and the demon are not, like, when somebody says it's two sides of the same coin, it's a really flawed fallacy, because like, you have to be, like, being the good guy, you have to think like the bad guy, but you also have to think like the good guy. The bad guy doesn't have to think like anything. The bad guy just needs to want something. And to be fucking lazy. And try to get away with, like, bad form. All right, next page. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants. Now this is where Khaleesi got a little dumb. She got a little angry, and then she goes, "We're going to war!" Like, now, instead of take some time and relax. All right, let's read this again. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the result that 1/3 of his men are slain, while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. This is where, like, yeah, 1/3, one of her fucking dragons gets shot down. There were 2 left, 1 gets shot down. And then she gets really angry, you know? So, it's try not to go to war because you're angry. Try to go to war because your dish is now cold and calculated. So, wisdom here, annoyance here, foolishness here. So, this is the freak out zone in between foolish and annoyance. This is where you freak out and you do stupid shit. Try not to do stupid shit, you know? Like, for me, most of the crazy, stupid shit I do is like telling people they're evil fucking cunts online, publicly. That's like about as stupid as I'll get. Wisdom, ignorance. That's what the name Kali Ren was supposed to mean. That means I'm like the crazy red dragon that just says stuff. Like a red wren bird also. So it's like the boundary. It's annoying, but it's needed. Okay, so wisdom and annoyance. And this says ignore. Not ignorance. Not like ignore as in like you're unaware of something, because ignorance is a vice, you know? But wisdom, when you're annoyed, just ignore them. Maybe set some self-defense grids up, and self-defense spells up, stuff like that, all day long. But do not go into attack. Ever. Never lose your footing because you're angry. That was like the Batman, like the Ra's al Ghul teaching, where what's his, not the Christopher Nolan Batman, that one. What's his face? Ew, Bates, Christian Bale. There we go. So we have Christian Bale's character, and then we have Liam Neeson's character, right? And Christian Bale's character is Batman, and he's coming after Liam Neeson. And Liam Neeson just takes a swipe, and he goes, "You lost your footing for a kill stroke." And it's like, it's a really clear teaching. It's like, never leave, like trying to never leave home base. Or your root chakra. Ever. The minute you leave your root chakra, you go into bad form, and then it's cheap, or it's a cheat. And then you're going to have to eat shit a little bit more. So the healthier you can root. And I'm cleaning out some of the ick in the planet so that people can root a little better. Root into healthier soil. The more that you can like stay solid in yourself and not go into aggression, the classier it is, the more profound it is, and the stronger it is. So, Khaleesi got annoyed. with good reason, but man. When unless you're turning to flame, where you're so angry you just turn to fire. When you're getting enraged, that's the time where you're like, I'm supposed to set boundaries. Use that rage to go into action, but not aggression. Because the aggression is weak at that point. Just remember, so this is the better teaching. When we're talking, so for the Ravenclaw lighting ceremony, we're talking about Kali Mahel, or Kamael, and then we're talking about Sadkiel, or Zodkiel. So these are the two archangels, the red and blue dragons, right? So we have Kamael, which is like, if you enrage Kamael, into action, it's going to be weak. But into just creating a nice boundary, boom, that's fine. But it's still a little weak. Because this is the one that gets enraged. But with Zodkiel, we'll take that action in a state of peace and benevolence and go 500 times the energy. Because Zodkiel takes that little bit of light from Kamael and goes abundance. So that's like if a Sith, I hate using it. I hate using, because the Siths use the red fucking ray, like they're somehow Gaebra. No, they're demons. They're not Gaebra. So, but it still kind of parallels. It's like, if a Sith was also on the same exact side as a Jedi, that. If the Sith is battling a Jedi, no. So this is where the Gryffindor and Ravenclaw works a lot better, because it's like Gryffindor with the heart chakra, Tiferet, and then Jedi, right, so Ravenclaw. So you got the red and the blue rays that are on the same team. Like good cop, bad cop. But it's still a cop. Because a Sith ain't a cop, you know? They're just a Slytherin. Therefore, the skillful leader, because here's how you know they're a Slytherin. So they're using the red ray from Netzach, because they haven't crossed in through the heart chakra into healing. They haven't graduated empathy. They haven't graduated selflessness. A Sith is a Sith is a Slytherin. All right. Therefore, the skillful leader subdues the enemy's troops without any fighting. This is where it's like, learn how to become a dragon whisperer. Big time. If you can do that, he captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdom without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he will dispute the mastery of the empire. And thus, without losing a man, his triumph will be complete. This kind of goes to say, like, the art of war is like, how do I go to war 0? How do I be so clever, so in alignment, so powerful, so masterful that I never have to actually go to battle? And then you're going to go, and this is where it's a little still hypocritical. Because you might use other people's armies against each other. And then lay siege to the city. So, so like, you still created turmoil and like, but at least you kept your army intact. So that's where you're still a bit of a hypocrite, but still, it's better than nothing. Man. This is the method of attacking by stratagem. So here we have the reading: seduction, success, and then it goes positioning yourself well. So this is if you can like seduce instead of battle, then you're like 90% of the way there, you know? If you can seduce and then turn the heart and mind, 100% of the way there. Okay. It is the rule in war. If our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him. If 5 to 1, attack him. If twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, we can avoid. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. So if you're a lone man, you're on the run. But you might be able to create huge harm. I'm hearing I might be able to create huge karma. How create you create huge harm to the person and the person's character, the person's food supply, still being in a state of fleeing. Always know that. Okay. You are stronger. You are bigger. You are smarter. So, and then it says, the battle you should choose. So I've never been in the bigger category, ever. I have been smarter and stronger. But bigger's never been my thing. So I've always been missing that component. And that's bad when you're talking about like just popularity, you know. So with the stronger and smarter, that's like the dragons in your magic. And then the smarter also, it's like karma calculations, manipulation, understanding universal law, etc., etc. So just that provides like optimum. The only place bigger comes into play when you're like in God's Wars is like, yeah, God's on your side. And this is where like it's Moses, you know? It's Moses with the stake of God, like the staff of God, going, I am bigger than 1,000 people. So that's where bigger comes into play. So maybe I do the bigger thing, but like it doesn't feel like it right now. Now, the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all parts or all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. So I've never heard this term before, and I'm going to look it up right now. So it's bulwark, a defensive wall. So it's BULWARK, a defensive wall, a person, institution, or a principle that acts as a defense. Man, I am like God's bulwark for this planet. So let's read that again. Now, the general is the bulwark of the state. If the bulwark is complete at all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. So obviously by linear, I'm still defective. You know why? Because I don't have an entire army of dragons. Just spiritual dragons, and that is just not enough, you know? So here's the graphic. Gain support. Show leadership. It's like this. You know what it's like to be Jake Sully on a planet full of muggles that are like demons? Yeah. And then try to make Mother Earth into Pandora the other way. Man, that's says so much. All right. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army: by commanding the army to advance or retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. So it's kind of like when I tell you to do something and you just can't do it. So it's like giving you guys action steps that are unrealistic for your current circumstance. This is a form of abuse. Now, I'm doing it with a grain of salt that you like figure out how to like be creative and create a pathway. But if I was in a state of actual command, yelling at somebody to like, yelling at an overweight person to lose 50 pounds without providing the facility, the education, the action steps, and all of the things, like everything to have it done, like I am crippling them in that space. So this is why most of my Facebook posts are like, here is the teaching, here is the action step. Like, turn these genomes off. Now, for any asshole who then comes along, well, we don't know how to do that. And I'm like, I have a video on YouTube. And I have pearls. And you could ask. Like, it's a little disconcerting. But it is, if I'm expecting those people to like turn on their genomes right then, like that's not productive. So much of the time of me being an employee or a personal assistant, my leader, the person I would report to, did this consistently in every aspect of the job. I have never been really, until I become just pure freelance working offline and at a distance, been in a position where the person I report to has an itemized to-do list, level of expectation that is healthy and pragmatic. And I have worked with companies and people everywhere. The Fender guitars was actually quite nice, but again, I was a freelance and I was working mostly remote, and I had complete autonomy over the production of the service I was providing. So this is a huge, it's a blind spot in me, even as a Kabbalah teacher. This is a huge abuse of power. And it's huge for parents over children. It's huge for schools over children. Any kind of higher education institution. It is huge over government and taxes. They are literally hobbling the army, crippling people with their demands, and having no ability to receive any constructive feedback around it. So the biggest abuse is it starts with parenting and children, because the child will tell you that they can't do something, and the parent will force them to do it, or yell at them until it gets done. And the child's trying to communicate, there is a void in them, or an inability to produce something in them. Whether it's like a lack of emotional encouragement, or any energy, and the parent pushes them to extreme chaos. And it's pretty bad. It's the ignorance that your party or your army can't obey you that creates the abuse. Because once you become, and this is why ignorance is a sin and a vice. Because once you become aware of what somebody is capable of or incapable of, you won't be making those demands. So for me, it's like, I'm making demands on people online to have any care, compassion, or consideration for me and my entire, just any aspect of my existence. And it's unrealistic because these people are zombies. And they can't even go pick up litter. And they won't stop eating processed meat. And they just don't care about anything. And like, I'm taking it personally. But I don't know if it's I'm making a demand or I am trying to gauge the reality and assess the situation of where, like, the planet I'm living on and the populace that's living on it, you know? And it's really scary. Like, at that point, I don't know what these people care about. Like, what are these zombies? Like, they care about, like, getting an iPhone. They care about social acceptance. But, like, in a weird way. Because it's antisocial. And then I'm like, like, what am I even doing here? So, one, I can't consider them my army. Okay. There are 3 ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army. So 1, hobbling it. Commanding the army to advance or to retreat. Being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. Okay, so hobbling it. This is also like if you tell your kid to make a purchase and then or like to like get something or to do something and that kid ends up sitting in limbo because you haven't given them the money or the ability to get the job to do it. And then it's just like this constant gray zone limbo. That's like a huge form of abuse. That's like almost every single job I've ever been given. All right. Number 2, by attempting to govern an army in the same way as he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions which obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. Okay, so you cannot, for the life of you, this is where citizens versus civilians come in. So, an army is not held to the same standards or rules or realities as the kingdom. And this is where, like, armies have their own government and their own courts because their reality is not the same as a civilian reality. And the same thing will go in the higher the higher echelons of going into Gryffindor and Ravenclaw and being like part of God's army, okay? You are not ever held accountable to the same levels of karma or standard as a normal civilian. Because what you're producing is something of value as an act of service. And those people are just consumers and narcissists. So they're not producing anything. They're indulging in like beauty, and they're indulging in vanity, and they're living. So it's like, but even in Hufflepuff could still be you're of service, you know, like. But once you're in the higher echelons, like if you buy a cup to produce a magic that's supposed to save 50,000 little girls, there is no karma in that purchase. Whereas a fucking asshole purchasing that karma could get shot for it because he is just a parasite continuing to consume. And if you hold your army at the same level of rules and regulations, it doesn't work. Because the dipshit isn't producing any value, and he's just taking. Okay. This is where the government goes really wrong in the United States, especially with all the soldiers that have extreme injury or PTSD. They're given almost no real medical and therapy or healers, etc., to work with them and rehabilitate them. And it's pretty demeaning, and it lowers the morale of the entire army. It lowers the morale of the entire country. If you have a very low morale, you're very weak. If you have a very low morale, you're susceptible to attack on all fronts. The higher the morale, the stronger you can regenerate, the more flexible, the more benevolent, and the higher intelligence will come through. Okay. Third one. By employing the officers of his army without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstances. This shakes the confidence of the soldiers. Okay, so this works in the same way as a company. When you hire people that have no qualifications or poor qualifications, and they don't have the ability to, there's no trust there. If you hire people that continue to perpetuate dramas, then there's no trust there. So if you don't know your team, what they're qualified for, what their talents are, and the services that they can provide, then Just not, there's nothing, you know? You can't bench your A-lister and then think you're a good coach. Unless it's like as a punishment. But not when you're like on a sinking ship. then your A-lister's like, yeah, well, I guess we're going to go down with this ship. So this is kind of where it's like those crystal children, the star seeds and stuff, they need to be at proper education institutions, because otherwise it's like benching the A-list alphas that could be like leaders. And then you're demeaning their intelligence by like throwing them into public education systems where they get drowned out, bullied to death, and then end up killing themselves. It's a really bad situation. So this is also, I'll tell you the story of Lucy and Charlie. I don't really want to go there, but Lucy and Charlie, so Charlie's like God's favorite fucking dragon, okay? Charlie is obedient beyond belief. He's like a dog, okay? Like, there's no tricky energy. It's just solid. And Lucy is like a cat and like real rebellious and funny and just something else, okay? And they're kind of both the king of the dragons, but they're not in certain capacities. So like Charlie still needs Lucifer a little bit to be a king, to protect Charlie a little bit. But like Charlie needs to be seen as the king too. And there's a reason for both of them. But the component is like, if I'm going into warfare and I'm expecting Lucifer to behave like Charlie, I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna lose trust. Like, if I'm gonna go to war and have Lucifer be working with me, I'm gonna send Lucifer to be a scout and like an assassin and a ninja, okay? I'm not gonna be like, yeah, have my back in every crazy capacity, because even Lucifer doesn't have like the structure of mental discipline training like Charlie does. So it's different. So Lucifer's shadow is like a little bit reckless, okay? And Charlie's shadow is like a little bit boring. A little straightforward. And for me, that's not a shadow. Like, for me, that's a gift. You've reached a kind of a state of mastery when your shadow is a gift instead of a detriment. Charlie can be seen as predictable. No, predictability and stability are not the same. Okay. Obedience to God does not equate to predictability, by the way. All right. So ignorance, and then we have action, and then we go failure. So the point of that graphic is like, if you take your action in the space of ignorance, that's where you fail. So you should have knowledge. You should have knowledge of yourself, of your army, of your military leaders, of their talents, what their needs are, etc. Then you can win. But when the army is restless and distrustful, Trouble is sure to come from other feudal princes. So this is, again, it's like, when you've weakened the state, the moral state, when you've weakened the morale of your army, other people will start to come poach them. So if they'll do it, they'll come and snake them. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. So for me, let's say if my army is coming in, if my army is being snaked, then there's a twofold thing. One, those people weren't really trustworthy or hardy enough, because they're attracting the lower vibe people. They're attracting more like the Slytherin, cheap, like, energies, right? Because they want an easy route. So I'm not 100% sure on this. Maybe it works better when when we have a company and you have an employee basis, or a school and you have a full-on basis, and then you don't want people coming in and snaking your people, because you want the morale to be high. So here's our graphic. It's dismay. And then we go, alternatives present themselves. So I'm going to say it like this. Ain't nobody stealing Lucifer from me. Or Charlie. Why? Because or probably any of the dragons, for all intents and purposes. Because there is a sense of loyalty and heroism among us, and we build a friendship that lasts beyond lifetimes. So nobody's gonna undermine me by like trying to snake Lucifer or Dino Star, because it just doesn't work like that. Like, these are highly intelligent beings, highly intelligent. They've shown me things that transcend, and they don't even like people. And they calculate quantum mechanics shadows, and they calculate like everything, right? So they're not like, you can't buy Lucifer, you know? Like, it just doesn't. Maybe if you were Jesus and you could offer Lucifer a clear ticket to heaven, that would be the only bargaining chip. So I am not creating dismay within the dragons, not that much. And if I am, man, I better repair it. And vice versa. Then we go, alternatives present themselves. And then loyalty falters. So the other component is like, the dragons are like, the dragons are loyalty beings. So they're like, we'll die for you and you'll die for us. We'll work for you and you'll work for us. And it goes like that. So it's really hard. You win a dragon's loyalty, and man, like, that's yours, you know? It's people too. Ascended masters. If you can win the hearts of an ascended master and like get them to actually care about you, man, what would it take for you to actually win the heart and mind of Kali? What would it take for you to actually win the heart and mind of Isis? What would it take? Like, I doubt it's living a matrix existence. I think it would require doing really scary shit all day long. Spent most of my day in the dimensions. And yesterday. Take two. Is it too bright? It's a little weird. This lighting's a little weird. I'm pretty over everything. I'm starting to get to the point where, yeah, I know you guys are over me too. Believe me. I'm starting to get to the point. Guess what? Even if you guys are over me, this is an infinity train. You know what that means? It means even after we die, we are either going, there are two options. You are either going to become my friend and like family and ascend into the heavens, or you're going to become nothing. And it's like path towards God and healing and repair of relationships, or destruction. Almost everybody on the planet has chosen destruction. Nobody wants to be my friend at all. And that's a little intimidating for them when you think like Archangel Kamael, like if they can't become best friends with Archangel Kamael, then there's something demonic. Because Archangel Kamael is like master of strategy, master of discipline and common sense. the most even-keeled, high logic, high strategy, like give action steps for you to, like stepping stones for you to like ascend. The problem is like, if you don't want to take those stepping stones, because they're just ew to you, like, get rid of your fucking iPhones. Ew! So like I said, you could say very clear, specific things that are logical, scientific, and like obey God kind of thing. So it's like, get rid of the thing that controls your life, that creates planet rape and little kids to have their hands blown off and their eyes blown out of their face. That also costs you $300 a month. Ew! You're insane! You're a demon! You see? You could be very clear, specific, and concise. And their shadow will undermine everything that you have to offer. Everything. Because it's like not in their comfort zone. It's pretty gross. It's the same as a doctor telling an obese person that they need to diet and exercise. And I don't want to say diet, like cut food out, but like clean food up. Ew! Vegetables? That's demonic. Ew! Pick up litter? Ew! Do anything of service or value. Like, don't take Kabbalah and then teach it. Like, don't become a shaman. Don't learn common sense math. Don't become an artist either. Don't do this. Don't do that. Those are all gross things. So it's like, Kamael, pick up some litter. No! You're a demon. For me, it's like me telling people to take 5 actions to free the whales. 5. No! You're demanding! You're a demon! I think you should die. And so I did. So there is a reason for the state of the planet. And that that level of narcissism is so, like, even if they don't display, and many times they do, right? Many times they do display it outwardly. But 99% of the time, it's like in their brains. And in their bodies. And it's kind of to the point where I'll make a post, and I can feel it and see it seething within everyone. And 99% of the time, I only make a post to trigger the fucking demons within their body. Because they're narcissists and they need to burn. So, like, you can't tell me God's law and, like, actions I need to take and wisdom and make me burn. Because those demons don't exist. I've purified them. I spent 45,000 hours purifying those demons out of me with sheer austerity. It's pretty fantastic. So those things have been, I don't want to give anybody anything. But, like, when shit hits the fan, like, I'll be able to go 2 months without food and still keep my calm. Zen. So, like, that level of mental, emotional discipline training, high thresholds. And when your demons have been burned out of you, you become pretty insecure about very little. Higher safety zone. A way stronger root chakra. So the stronger your root chakra, the more solid your ground is. And, like, the less other people can control you. When you have, like, a crap root chakra, you're, like, at the mercy of anything. So the higher, like, so this is where Gryffindor is like, not only do I ground deeper than the, like, Hufflepuff goes, like, so we go from Slytherin and Netsock into Hufflepuff, and then we go straight back down into Malkuth, and we start burying ourselves and leveling out, like, so we make sure that we're even more grounded, you know? Gryffindor goes, I'm going to sit at the fucking base of hell and clean everything out so that there's nothing. So nothing can undermine my success. Nothing. And that is excruciating, painful, and torturous. But once it's done, it's done. And that's Kamael territory. There are dragons that have let me get spirit dragons that haven't even gotten there, you know? Because if they had, it'd be cleaned. Jesus didn't fucking do it. So Gryffindor territory's like, do the real work. Okay. I like to say, once you start digging into the underworld and you see people's shadows, you wonder why it's a shit relationship, like in the real world. And then you dig into the underworld and you see why. You see why it's a shit relationship. You see you see things for what they are instead of what you pretend that they are, because you want to create goodwill and good grace between the two of you. And then you can also, I like to, this is like the brotherhood of soldiers when they're at war. Like you see, you'll when you're tested in battle, you find your friends and your enemies, and they become much clearer, because your friends, even if they make a mistake, if they fuck up, they'll do everything it takes to repair it. And your enemies just don't. They pretend to, and then they just keep fucking up. Subconsciously, on purpose. How convenient. So this is how you know a good spirit guide or good dragon. Here's Charlie's like, how do I make sure I'm not voting for Khaleesi's failure subconsciously? And then he goes to start turning that genome on. Because that's love. That's like good the good dragon. The dragons are smart enough that they want to be able to make it into Gryffindor, right? Because they want to build loyalty and trust within each other. With each other. People, on the other hand, haven't really made that their priority. They have not built trust with the planet. They have not built trust with animals on the planet. They have not built trust with each other. They have not built trust with women and children. They continue to not build trust. All right. I know you guys are so sick of me by now. I'm sick of myself, but so thus the infinity train rolls on. Thus we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. One, I'm thinking about this. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not really sick of Charlie. I'm not really sick of Lucy. I'm not really sick of Dino Star. I'm not really sick of Mother Andromeda. Why? They feed me. So they feed me intelligence or juice. And so it feels like air, fresh air coming, or a joke, or a laugh, or something. It feeds me and it feeds my soul. And then there are the other people in the spirit worlds that I have to deal with constantly, parent, teach, fix their genomes, and like it's exhausting. And they act like demonic children, and I have to deal with them constantly. And that is the shittiest thing ever. And for me, I'm like, how do I turn on the genome that I'm never like that to Mother Andromeda or the dragons? I'm kind of like that with the dragons. Not like that. Or I'm never like that with the dragons. Like that with the dragons. That's better. So that I'm not just a demonic troll to my own spirit guides. Where it's just no fun or intelligent or anything. Man, I just don't even want to talk about it. All right. Thus, we may know that there are 5 essentials to victory. 1. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. 2. So for all the crazy alpha males on this planet, they should learn not to fight. Because they're psychopaths and they don't even have intelligence. Two, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. So it's like knowing how to handle I want to say a murder of crows, but like do we a pride of dragons? What is it called? Like a swarm of infiltrating dragons. So you need to know how to handle that and handle like an army of 10 witches. So if you learn how to position yourself to handle both, then you'll probably be okay. So my just understanding spiritual energy and divine flow, I go, oh fuck, well the dragons are much more intelligent than people are. And they're much more powerful and they control all this spiritual energy and they're the grid setters for the planet. Maybe I should be on their side and be friends with them. Like, it should just be that, right? The keepers of karma and wisdom and destiny. So how do I be Hiccup, right? Or how do I be Valka? Because that makes way more sense than, like, trying to go to war with them. So then you go, oh, the king of the dragons is Lucifer in the pits of hell. So how do I become friends with Lucifer instead of being under attack by Lucifer, okay? It took a couple years for me and Lucifer to like flow and like for there to be more like friendly bond and trust, right? It took some time, but then like after last year, Lucifer started coming through and like cracking jokes, and it was way more fun and like enlivening. But we still had a love bond before. It just wasn't like it was just it's kind of scary. I was fine with Charlie. Lucy was it was challenging. Um Yeah, Charlie felt like my dragon, and Lucifer felt like a free agent. So it was a little weird. All right, number 3. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit through all its ranks. Okay, so that's like if the general has the spirit, but also like the lowly infantry have the same level. If the lowly infantry are like, no, I do not want to charge, right? And the general is like, yeah, like that. This is not a good sign. Okay. If the lowly infantry is like, yeah, and the general is like, that is also not a good sign. But when they're on the same, when they're bound by the same level of inspiration and forward momentum, charge, right? Then it's a united force. And then it works. This is where it's like the American military going into Iraq and like the soldiers on their 4th tour. I'm blowing that word up. It's like when they're being forced and drafted into Iraq for the 4th time. I know it's wrong. I know what I'm saying is wrong, but it's the right message. And the soldiers are just like the men, the servicemen are just like, we're exhausted. We're like four times. We weren't even supposed to go back twice, you know? So, like at that level, there is so much disharmony that it creates liability. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. This is kind of, I like to think of it like how PETA bought SeaWorld shares. Like, PETA comes in and goes, so SeaWorld shares go onto the market, and then PETA goes, we're buying them. Like, this is the smartest move ever. Just buy the whales, you know? Buy SeaWorld. I put one of my articles on my hunger strike page was like me at Morgan Stanley going, wow, with the wealth in the planet, on the planet, I'm pretty sure some wealthy people could just buy out SeaWorld and then free everything. But that's not the agenda of wealthy individuals, is it? All of those wealthy individuals are probably going to eat the karma. It's like what God shows you that you could do and then you choose not to. Like I say this pretty clearly. I had a nice Facebook post. It's like upon death, you are not going to be you were never going to be judged by your light. By like, oh, like I was nice to 50 people. You're going to be judged by your shadow. All the things you fucking didn't do. Because you were afraid. Because you were making excuses. It's like you're going to be judged by like not living by your soul. Heartfeltly. And you're going to see this because the next time you reincarnate, you're going to reincarnate into a body onto the planet, probably the same one, because it's going to be the same vibration that you were currently at. And you're going to see that there was no change. And there was no change because you didn't want to pay it. You didn't want to do the real work. That's the difference between a dragon person and a unicorn person. Unicorn person kind of goes, fuck you, dragons. Like, I'm divine and special. And a dragon person's like, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat that unicorn. I'm going to eat shit. I'm going to do the real work. Like a workhorse. Get almost no credit. And then still get punished and call them a demon. Because that's what people like to call dragons demons. And then still be held responsible and accountable for all the karma. And then still show up for God. And then, like, fuck off, unicorns. That's why they get eaten by dragons. And to me, that ain't no crime. It's only your it's only your crime when like the dragons are supposed to be protecting the unicorns. But man, if that's the only food on a planet, then it's fuck off, unicorns, you know? You're so divine and pure, but you're not going to do the work. And that's where his said, that's the hypocrisy component that Ravenclaw needs to be very mindful of. Because the Griffins do the back-breaking work. And yet are seen as lower or less than. And then the fucking unicorns come in. Like they're so good. And they don't do jack shit. And then that's like, until like a unicorn can come in and like be with one of the dragons. It'd be like me chastising soldiers. I'm not gonna do that, you know, because I'm not a narcissist. I'll chastise the assholes that are in charge of those soldiers for being reckless and negligent and unintelligent, for spending money where they shouldn't, for believing lies that they knew were like lies just to feed their own egos. Man, I'll chastise those people. I want to say most of those people have never really been in battle either, which is even more convenient. Number 5. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. So, this is like President Trump meddling with the military, right? Or the presidents, like just because they're chief of, like they're the military chief, right? I don't even know how to say it correctly. But if they're meddling without real intelligence, it's not great. Okay, this says bosses who get out of the way. So again, it's like corporation. So think of like the president as like your CEO or your director, your managing director of a company, okay? And then you've got your army. So then you've got your generals. So then you have like the heads of the departments. And then you have your army. And those are so you have your middle management underneath all of the directors of the departments. And then you have like the lowly regular employees, and then you have like the temps and like mailroom staff, like that level, right? So that's like that's your low level infantry probably. Okay. Bosses who get out of the way. So your low, like your mailroom people and the temps and like, and even just your regular employee, like your $30,000 to $50,000 a year employee, okay? Your base, some in at BuzzFeed, that's the regular low level employee. The CEO has no knowledge of those people. None. The CEO doesn't even give a shit about those people. They say they do. I have never seen that to be true. Ever. Ever. At any company. None. They might care about like the middle management or the directors, but I've never seen them care about. The CEO, like the higher level management, it's not even management at that level. If they're getting in the way of the day-to-day operations of the company tanks. Now, I'll tell you a story at BuzzFeed, there were 2 employees. One was named Peggy and the other was named Ochi. And these people were horrible. They spent more time creating drama and disharmony within the company than actually being productive. Ochi was finally let go after she was caught having stolen thousands of dollars, maybe I think it was $2,000 worth of company goods or money, like to furnish her own personal apartment. Okay, and that's 2 years later. Peggy spent more time gossiping and like she would go off for lunch and doing whatever the fuck. She spent so much time gossiping and creating problems within teams that it was never, she was the office manager too. Like the level of craziness around those 2 people was insane. And my friend was the HR business partner. So she's the head of HR, at least for the California office. And she got so many complaints about these 2 people, like daily. And my friend would go to Zay, the boss. And Zay liked these 2 people. And his personal like for these people, even though the entire staff had complaints about these 2 employees daily. Daily. Company, it just creates disharmony. Ochi is then found out to have stolen things 2 years later, and then Peggy gets let go. Like, probably because she was counseled on taking 2-hour lunches and disappearing into thin air on the company's dime. But after months and months and months of that vampiric behavior. Okay, so the bosses, like Zay, interfered. He interfered with the company's trust and teamwork. Like there was no way for like an HR team to develop with a vampire in the middle of it, constantly creating horrible, horrible energy, unintelligence, lies, deception, and gossip. Constantly. So those people are trolls and need to be like let go of out of the company like real fucking fast. Guides to follow. Okay, so guides to follow, like let's think of morals, ethics, vices, virtues, like follow the virtues, look for the vices, and throw that shit out, And then we go, people to lead. Oh, guides to follow could also be like instruction manuals. People to lead. Okay. How good work gets done. If you have the boss that just gets the fuck out of the way, good instructions and good leadership, then good work can be created. It's pretty self-explanatory. So then I go, bosses who get out of the way. So Mother Earth kind of sucks here. And that's why her planet looks like shit. Because she gets in the way and she doesn't do it logically with like good leadership skills. Guides to follow. Like, and then she doesn't even have a good instruction manual. Like she's given us hints on like how to work with her, but it's like, it's pretty, It's like, how do we get from point A to point B? So then there's that component. And then people to lead. She likes to take out her leaders. That's the part where it gets really fucked, is that she'll hold her leaders at the same accountability as everybody else. Like the starseeds and crystal children that are told that they're also demon trolls and that they should just commit suicide. And so they do. And then she's left with like nobody on the planet to help her. Know your enemy. Know yourself. The art of war in a nutshell. So if you can know your enemy and yourself and how it connects with each other, you will surely win. All right. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. So if you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. Man, that fucking sucks, right? Yeah. That's the 50. That's that card, the 5 of Cups card. Because once you're in Gaebra, you're just starting to gain knowledge of your enemy. So it's like, oh no! Like, I didn't know that was what was going to happen. And that's why God says it's the sucker punch. Because you're just really learning who's who and what's what. And you're like, I'm running for my life. All right. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Okay, so this is where the sucker punch feels like a sucker punch because you know yourself, right? Even if you're in the pits of hell. You're in the pits of hell, you know your shadow, you know your karma, you know your place on the planet. But you might not know the planet, okay? And so you might take a sucker punch because you think that the planet's going to be reasonable and logical, and it's not. And then you have to go like, oh, crap. So like that, you might take that as a sucker punch. You might have a friend, like let's just say you have a dragon, right? And you have a love relationship with that dragon. Now there's I don't like saying this, but I need to say it. Don't put all of your eggs in your dragon's basket because you'll take a sucker punch from the dragons and you'll go, crap. They'll feel bad about it, believe me, but like they're not perfect, right? Even if they're training to be Christs and heroes. So like, don't trust Lucifer until Lucifer is giving you number one, don't trust Lucifer until like you love Lucifer, like in the heart, like love. Don't fucking trust until it's earned. And even then, man, Lucifer still has work to do, you know? Lots. So there's that component. Knowing yourself and also knowing your team. You've got to know your team. That's part of yourself. Okay? Because if you're in the pit holes and you're expecting them to have your back and like you say something or you go into some weird shadow space and then they rebel against you, it's like it's weird. It's weird and it sucks because you just felt like you got sucker punched by your best friend, and that's crap. All right. And then they feel awful. They feel awful, and then they do everything to repay you and repair it. Okay, are you sick of me yet? Probably. We'll be on to the next chapter in the next video.